You know, when I saw that schedule, I was trying to think how we can fill that up, and I thought, well, maybe we should do singing for about half an hour, and then get some thoughts shared in after that. But I do have some things I'd like to share. Good morning to each of you.
Good morning.
Glad to be here. We actually were here 20 years ago, 20, right in there somewhere. We were doing childcare, and along with my brother and his wife, and anyway, haven't been back since. And so I had no idea that we'd come back as a speaker someday, but here we are, and blessing to see you all here, get to know you. Bunch of people I don't recognize, but that's good. As far as what I would like to say, I don't know if you saw the FOCIS brochure or whatever. Berlin asked me to write down what I'd like to talk about, and I think it was about a year and a half ago, and I said, let's talk about stages in life. And you might be wondering what that would be, and actually I've been wondering about that ever since, kind of. And you'd think I had a lot of time to think about it. Well, I do. We're in the middle of life, that's for sure. We have a 4-year-old, our youngest, then we have a 10-year-old, and then we have 4 teenagers. My oldest is 20 years old. We have 7 children. And so when thinking about stages of life, it feels like we are in the middle of a lot of different stages. And even when I think about being in a youth, and even when me growing up, I mean, I remember back in some things, it's kind of funny, I don't know if you think about things like this when you're little, but to me there were some things that I dreaded having to do. And you know, when I don't know how old I would have been, maybe, I'm just going to say maybe 10. And 3 things, I still remember 3 things that I thought, you know, those are going to be hard to do. One was to give your testimony when you're baptized. And you might think, wow, you know, you should be praising God if you're giving a testimony when you're baptized. But that looked scary, and I was like, whoa, you know, that's something that, when that's done, that'll be a relief. And then asking to go out on a date, that was definitely something that was way out there. And then the third was a speech after the wedding. I don't know why those 3 things kind of really stuck in my mind, but those are things that, you know, if you get through them, probably the rest of life is pretty easy coasting. But anyways, then there's also things you look forward to. I mean, same thing. When I was little, getting done with school was huge. The last day of school, that was just what I was looking forward to. And I guess that would maybe say I didn't enjoy school. That's partly true. But another thing, getting a driver's license, another mile mark, hit a home run over the fence when we're playing softball. You know, just these kind of, you know, for a 8, 10-year-old, kind of these mile marker things that, to me, I mean, it's funny, so I'm 48 years old. I still remember those little mile marker things, and they might look pretty trivial, but you know what? Then they look pretty important, and pretty important in life. Well, there's a lot of things that we think about when it comes to what's important in life. I was talking to one of well, I knew that one of the girls in our youth group back home was really looking forward to being in the youth. She wasn't in the youth yet, and it was just counting down. And she told me last winter, I think it was, when she was watching the youth play volleyball, and like 167 days left. And I just thought it was hilarious that she was counting down to something like that. But you know what? It's what we are. And I don't know what you count down to. You might not be counting down to anything. Or you might be. You might be looking ahead at life and you're thinking, boy, if I could get to that stage, that looks so fun. Or if I could just get past this, then I can enjoy life. Or if I can do this, then I will be who I want to be. And there's a quote that I'm not sure if I have it written down. But yeah, here it is. The pace is addictive and gives a false sense of purpose. And that's thinking about the busyness of life, which is what I find myself in, so many things to do. And I don't want to talk about that really because everyone's busy, but the pace is addictive and it gives you a false sense of purpose. And I think by us being here this week, it says that we're looking for something else. We're looking for something other than being at the job Monday morning and clocking in, clocking out, whatever we do for work. There's something else. There's something else that we want, something else that we see the value of. And thinking about the different stages of life, and I remember when we had our first children, it was, it felt right to have that responsibility. But I also remember how much fun it was when I was 16 and when I was 20, and there was just freedom, and there was freedom. There was just so many things that you could do, and that is. But as you go through life, it's like I was ready. I was ready for some of these other things. I'm ready for the responsibility of a job. I'm ready for the responsibility of taking care of a wife. And I wasn't when I was 16. I wasn't when I was 18. But the Lord just kind of prepares us as we go. And so here I am. I'm talking at this stage of my life, and there's some of you who are different ones. You're farther along than I am. And so it would be interesting to me to hear your perspective of life, of how do we find purpose, how do we find meaning as we go through where we are. Not looking ahead and not looking back, but so much, but where we are. So this week I want to look at some principles in life that I believe apply to us in these stages of life. And I guess in thinking about it, I think I'd rather talk about that. I'd rather talk about principles in life that we can apply, and I think it applies to the young people. I think it applies to me. I think it applies to young marrieds. I think it applies to the older ones that still are just timeless principles, and we can apply them into how we roll with our families, or if we're single, wherever we are at. Max Lucado says this in one of his books: "You have been given your life. No one else has your version. You'll never bump into yourself on the sidewalk. You'll never meet anyone who has your exact blend of lineage, loves, and longings. Your life will never be lived by anyone else. And who pressed the accelerator? As soon as one day is lived, here comes another. The past is gone. The good old days are exactly that. Life is racing by, and if we aren't careful, you and I will look up, and our shot at life will have passed us by." One of my friends back home was at a funeral this past week for a cousin who died in his sleep. He was 44 years old. He had a heart attack, and as far as I know, he went to bed that night with full intention of getting up the next day, full intention of carrying on with his life. And like I said, I think us being here says that we want something more than just getting through life. One of the fun things about a phone is all the pictures on it. And you can go back and you look through all the pictures. And our children love to look at the pictures. And they're pictures of life. They're pictures of things that we do. And I like to look at them too. But that's what they are. They're the past. And so today we're taking our pictures. Whatever today is will be our picture. Psalm 100 verse 6, "For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations." I think everything I'm saying here could have been said 100 years ago, could have been said 1,000 years ago. God's truth is through all generations. It endures to all generations. And I want to look at some of that. This morning, I would like to look at something I'm going to call the law of the process. And I want to look in Nehemiah. So if you want to look in your Bibles in Nehemiah. What is the law of the process? I have 8 points that I'd like to look at. And in thinking about that, I had to think of a SOP, a standard of procedure. If you have a business that at least is food related, you have an SOP. And it's a standard of procedure you carry through with your plan. I said I'm in construction. We also have a sprouted flower business. So we do that on the side. And in order to get that, we had to have a standard of procedure for how I was going to tell the state that we were going to do this process. So we had to spell it out, our process, step by step, how we're going to do it, and what it would look like. Well, this winter, I got a knee infection and ended up feeling really sick. And it was just a infection on the outside. It wasn't that serious, but nonetheless, I was sick enough I needed to go to ER. Well, we had grain in our process, and all of a sudden I realized Jordan is my oldest, he's going to have to finish this grain. He never did it before, and I don't really have a SOP that he can follow. I have a written one for the books. I have one written down that the state likes, but when it really comes down to teaching my son how to do this, I didn't have it written down. So I was writing down furiously the thing, and it isn't that complicated, but still there was a certain order that we needed to do this in for it to work and for it not to be dangerous, whatever. Well, so I was trying to write this out, and I just realized so in thinking about this today, in our process, in our belief system, we might have something written down, we might have some paper belief of what we do, but do our children really know if they have to do it and we're gone, do they know how to carry on? And it hit me that, just like that, I had it written down, the state was satisfied. I can have something like church membership. I can have something to where it looks like we're carrying on the faith, but when it comes right down to passing that on, how does that look? Do my children actually know how? If they pick up tomorrow, do they know how to do that? So, since then, I wrote it out more detailed, and also I found out you don't do that great of a job when you're cramming and just comparing that. If we want to pass on what we really believe, well, you know what? I just got cancer, or I just realized that I might not live very long. Okay, quick, sit around, children. We're going to get this spelled out. This is what you do. You're going to miss a lot. You're going to miss some things that you really wish that you would have thought through before, that you would have talked about before. And so, if we want to pass on our core belief, we need to be real with how we do that and not just have a paper SOP. Anyway, so going in Nehemiah, how do we see this? The first principle I'd like to look at is to have a vision of a better process. Nehemiah 1, let's read 1 to 4. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, and it came to pass in the month Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan the palace, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came, he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these things, that I sat down and wept, and mourned certain days, and fasted, and prayed before the God of heaven. That is a picture of Nehemiah, and he's finding out what is going on in Jerusalem. It says he asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped. And I don't know if he didn't know about it before or what, but it says he was asking about it. He's wondering, what's the story with these people? So they told him, and in verse 4, when I heard these words, that he sat down and wept and mourned certain days, and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. The first step in improving a process is to see where we're at. The reality of where am I at in my life, or where am I at in my family, or in this, where am I at? Where is my people? Where are my people? And not just something to where, well, I think we're doing all right. Haven't asked anyone, but I think we're all right. How are the children? I think we're good. I think we're good. Or how's our church? You know, I haven't heard anything, as far as I know we're good. He asked him. He asked, how are we? How are the Jews doing? And it wasn't what he wanted to hear. And I think that's where when we don't ask is when I would rather that it was all good. I mean, I think Nehemiah would have wished that it was all good. That it was, that there were no needs. Reminds me of something that my 4-year-old said. I don't know what we were, it was something that we were concerned that something was going on, and part of a life of a 4-year-old with a lot of older children, they pick up a lot of words that you don't really think they should be saying. But anyway, she told Mom, "Don't worry, Mom, it's all good." And anyway, that was from a 4-year-old perspective, whatever it was. Don't worry, Mom, it's all good. And anyway, in this, Nehemiah didn't just take that. He said, what is going on? A vision will ignite the fire of passion that fuels our commitment to do whatever it takes to achieve the goal. A vision of what it can be, a vision of what it should be. Verse 11, we're going to just skip that prayer for the very moment, up to verse 11. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to the prayer of thy servant, and to the prayer of thy servants who desire to fear thy name. And prosper, I pray thee, thy servant this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. Part of his vision was when he went there. If you turn to the next chapter, and we'll kind of go back through some of these, but when in the next chapter, Nehemiah went to Jerusalem, and this is what he did to see what was going on. It took diligence to see where it was at. Verse 11, so I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days, and I arose in the night, and I and some few men with me, neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode upon. And I went out by night, by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, and to the dung court, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain, and the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then went I up in the night by the brook, and viewed the wall, and turned back, and entered by the gate of the valley, and so returned. And the rulers knew not whither I went, or what I did, neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. So he did a little surveillance. He went to see what's going on. So he heard it, he asked, and then he went, and he personally went and saw what it was. He wasn't making a big event out of it. He actually did it at night. He wanted to do it when people couldn't see him and when he could see it without distractions. But in verse 12 it says, "Neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem." And I think that's the key to this vision, what God had put in his heart to do in Jerusalem. It was not something that Nehemiah the cupbearer decided he wanted on his resume. He wanted to be known as, I'm going to be the builder of Jerusalem. I'm going to build those walls. But it's something that God put on his heart to do at Jerusalem. And he didn't really tell anybody until after he had seen what it was, what the problem was. And our job is to do what God puts in front of us. And it's not something that our job should define who I am. I've kind of pushed back on the concept, or maybe just the kind of the illusion that I am a pastor and that is who I am, or I am a construction worker, that's who I am. I'm a business owner, that's who I am. Because I think these things, they can come and go, occupation can come and go. Work of the church is going to carry on with or without me. That's what we do. It's what God puts in front of us. But it shouldn't be that defines who I am. But God puts us where we are, and there's a reason. But anyway, the pursuit of that goal, the pursuit of a vision that God puts in us, I don't believe we should let become so big that it maybe blocks out God, that it maybe blocks out the bigger purpose behind that. Anyway, but Nehemiah said, "What my God hath put in my heart to do at Jerusalem." And God speaks to us, I believe, today. I believe he speaks to us in giving us a vision, giving us a goal of things that he wants us to do. And he might not give that to somebody else. Ezra, a godly man, he came, and in this era, he didn't build the walls of Jerusalem. That wasn't what God put in his heart to do. And there were other godly people there, but this is what God put in Nehemiah's heart. And I believe he speaks to us as well. He gives us a vision of what to do, of where we're at in our lives. Second point is to take ownership of the decisions you are making. And take ownership of the situation you're in. There's so much victim mindset, in our culture, big time. Everyone's a victim, but I think we get into that victim mindset if we're not careful. That I'm here because of someone else, or I can't do this, or I can't move forward with my life because of what somebody else is doing, or whatever. There's a book, Ben Carson, autobiography by him, a doctor who started as a dirt poor black boy, and he had if life was stacked against him, it was against him, and he refused to let that. His mom refused to let him live with that mindset, and he lived like he could take ownership, like he did take ownership. How did Nehemiah take ownership of this? Nehemiah 1, we're going to go back to verse 5 and read to the end of that chapter. Always been amazed how he takes ownership of where those people were at. It wasn't just those wicked people, but he said us. Verse 5, and I said, I beseech thee, O Lord God of heaven, the great and terrible God that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him and observe his commandments. Let thine ear now be attentive, and thine eyes open, that thou mayest hear the prayer of thy servant, which I pray before thee now, day and night, for the children of Israel, thy servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we have sinned against thee. Both I and my father's house have sinned. We have dealt very corruptly against thee, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments, which thou commandest thy servant Moses. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, if ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. But if ye turn unto me, and keep my commandments, and do them, though there were of you cast out in the uttermost part of heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. Now these are thy servants and thy people, whom thou hast redeemed, by thy great power and by thy strong hand. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to the prayer of thy servant, the prayer of thy servants, who desire to fear thy name, and prosper, I pray thee, thy servant this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man. For I was the king's cupbearer. He took ownership of where they were as a group, and he said, we confess. We have sinned. We have dealt very corruptly against thee. We're responsible for our decisions. Now, there's things that happen to us that we're not responsible for, but we're responsible. We take ownership of what we do with that. We take ownership of our decisions. And that's as far as I know, across the board, whether we're little or old, we take responsibility for our decisions that we make. And excuses are just that. They don't look good to anyone else. I don't think they look good to God. What do I do with what has been given to me? Because there's a lot of things that we can't control that have been given to us. But we don't control circumstances. But we still have something to do. In this case, Nehemiah had a burden, and he had a vision, and then he took ownership of where they were as a group. Number 3, do what we do right every day. And this, in a way, is, I think, the heart of the process. But it's doing the ordinary things well. The law of the process is doing the ordinary things well. Verse 1, what was he doing? Nehemiah, he was in Shushan the palace. That was his job. He wasn't looking for something big. He wasn't looking for something amazing. He was doing his job. In verse 1 of chapter 2, let me just read that. And it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before him. And I took up the wine, and I gave it unto the king. Now I had not been before time sad in his presence. And we think about that he came with there was something different about him in how he came before the king that day. So what does that mean? That means for his duration, he was a cheerful worker. For he was known as a person who was not sad. He was known as a person who was positive. Because it says, now I had not been before time sad in his presence. He had a reputation for being there every day. There's a quote. Tony Dungy is the coach of Indianapolis Colts, and he took his team, took several teams, but they won the Super Bowl at one year and got close other years. But one thing that he would say, one thing that he would say was, we just do the ordinary things well. You know, we have a big game, we don't revamp our plan, we don't change our whole plan. No, we just do the ordinary things well. We're just gonna keep doing what we've been doing. And that was his mantra. And yesterday, when we were driving here, I had to think about that. We're driving, and I sort of have my mind just in neutral, actually. It was kind of the way that was. But anyway, my 4-year-old was wanting, how about a story? Tell me a story. And, well, I didn't think I had a story, actually, right then. But I was thinking about, I'm not sure if I thought about this then or if I thought about this morning. But part of doing the ordinary things well is not coming here and speaking for an hour in front of you. It's probably telling my 4-year-old a story when she needs a story.
Amen.
So I told her an awesome story about a bear. And it actually worked out. Usually those just kind of go as they go, and it actually worked out. So, but that's just the part of doing the ordinary thing. It isn't something that gets recorded. It isn't something that gets written about. But it's what we do. It's what we do as people that care, and people that realize that, you know, it's doing what we do right every day. And I believe that's, well, actually I want to read a couple verses in Proverbs that talk about that. Proverbs 4. Again, I think it's just the thing of, thank you. I was actually looking for my water bottle. I think they left it down there. Proverbs 4:23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Verse 25. Let thine eyes look right on, let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Ponder the path of thy feet, let all thy ways be established. Turn not to the right hand nor to the left, remove thy foot from evil. I've written in the margins, good habits make for good decisions in the moments of life. And that's that same concept. A good habit makes for good decisions in the moments of life. Because when we have to make a crisis decision, we don't have time to read a book. We don't have time to go back and look at our SOP. We have to make a decision, and those decisions are made in how we do life. Number 4, right attitudes result in right actions. In Nehemiah, pretty fascinating how he got these people who were in ruin and in disarray to build a wall that had been broken down and it was in shambles. It's amazing. There's only about one verse that tells us of that turnaround, but I would love to have been there and have seen that turnaround, because it was more than one verse. It was a change of direction. It was a change of, not my word, it was a change of everything for those people. A change from living in failure or living in fear to one of purpose, to one of direction, and ultimately to one of victory. And that verse in chapter 2, verse 17, Then said I unto them, Ye see the distress that we are in. Everybody knew it. How Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come, let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. Then I told them of the hand of my God, which was good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. And they said, Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. Isn't that amazing? Those two verses go from this place of failure, Jerusalem lieth waste, the gates are burned, we're a reproach, and to verse 18 where he says, I told them of the hand of my God, which is good upon me, and the king's words, and then their response in verse 18, let us rise up and build. What a change of direction. And it says, so they strengthen their hands for this good work. Right attitudes result in right actions. You know, those people, I'm sure there had to have been people, if we know people, there had to have been people there who were still like, this is not going to work. There had to have been those naysayers in that group. But there was enough people that said, you know what, he has a thought that I think we can do this, and let's do that. Let's follow this. And they did it. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. You know, what is manipulation and what is motivation? You know, what was that? What was that Nehemiah did? Manipulation, and this is just that you might have more thoughts on this. Manipulation is getting people to do what you want them to do, and people catch on to that. Your children catch on to that. Your workers catch on to that. Other people are not motivated through manipulation. You feel used. You feel like you're in an agenda. But what is motivation? Inspiring people to do what is best for them and for society. It's a God motive. Motivation, and somehow Nehemiah was able to well, the Lord used him in a powerful way with these people to motivate them out of where they were into doing something huge. I'm going to keep going. Number 5, details matter. In the process, details matter. You know, when you're given directions of how to do something, is it easy just to skip some of the details, some of the, you know, I get the main idea, I get the drift, let's roll. But there's some details that do matter. How close attention do we pay to the details? Nehemiah chapter 3, so that whole chapter 3, they're building the wall. They're building the wall, and it just says about each person building what was in front of them, which I also really like. It's they didn't run over and build a wall in front of neighbor Zebulun. They just stayed right where they went out in front of their place, and they built that wall. Verse 6, just pick a couple verses out of here that I thought were interesting. Well, verse 5. And next unto them the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles put not their necks to the work of their Lord. So there were some people there that did not work. But as far as I know, that was the only verse of negativity in this. There were still people that didn't work. But verse 6, moreover the old gate repaired Jehoiada, the son of Paseah, and Meshullam, the son of Besodiah. They laid the beams thereof, and they set up the doors thereof, and the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. If you've hung a door, you know that there's some tricks to it. You don't just throw a door up and it works awesome. There's some tricks to, you know, leveling the jambs and getting the hinges held right and get it so it works good, making the lock work good. There's just some tricks to making a door. Well, this here, it sounds there's some tricks to this. They laid the beams thereof, they set up the doors thereof, and the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. There was some detail, and there was some craftsmanship, and there was some skill put into doing that. Hard work. Down in verse 12. And next unto him repaired Shallum, the son of Helohish, I have no idea how to say this. The ruler of the half part of Jerusalem, he and his daughters. No excuses. He and his daughters did it. He and his girls did it. And they built. It says they built the they next unto him repaired the wall. Down in verse 20. And after him Barak the son of Zabbai earnestly repaired the other piece, from the turning of the wall unto the door of the house of Eliashib the high priest. Why does it say he earnestly? Most of these they repaired. Verse 20, it says he earnestly repaired. I don't know why it did. I don't know what was he doing that was earnest, but just some detail about how they built this wall. It didn't just appear, but it was little bit by little bit, little piece here and a little piece there. You can find excuses for not doing exactly what we're supposed to do. There's a reason but it creates a losing environment. When you give directions, you want it followed. And the same thing, when you take directions, we need to follow it. Before Joseph was the ruler, he was a prisoner, right? And it wasn't just any prisoner, he was responsible for other prisoners. And that wasn't because he came in with the resume, that was because he was doing the right thing the right way. Before David killed Goliath, he was doing his job tending sheep. He wasn't wanting to be known as the giant killer, but he was tending sheep. He was taking care of his job that was in front of him, and he did it. He did it well. And then God said, go after Goliath. And he did. Number 6, God works with what you have, and that kind of ties in with that. But I believe that's a principle that we find in the Bible, that God asks us to do something with what we have. And you see that even in creation, where God made Adam. He made Adam out of the dirt. He made Eve out of a rib. When he made fed the 5,000, he didn't just create it out of nothing, but he made it out of the 5 loaves, made it out of the fish. And it seems like it's a principle where God likes to use what we have, and he redeemed it. He makes it something big. He makes it something worthwhile. And that is something, a story of the widow in 2 Kings, where, if you remember that story, she was going to have her last meal with her son. What does she have in her house? First thing that Elisha asked her, what do you have in your house? He didn't say, well, yeah, you do have problems. You need a husband. Yeah, I feel sorry. You do need that. You need your community to help you. You're starving. He didn't say that. He just said, what's in your house? He said, what do you have? And she said, well, like a little oil. Just a little oil. Just something maybe she kind of despised. Something, yeah, it's just a little oil. And you know what? What did God use to bless her, to meet her needs, the rest of that famine? It was that little oil. When she gave it to God, when she gave that little oil, she poured it out. And you remember that story where she was to gather, all the bottles, gather all these things, and but she started with that little oil. She started with what she had in her house. And I think that's a principle. God works with what you have. You don't have to be born into a different family. You don't have to be in a different part of the country. You don't have to have more things or have less things. For some reason, God put us here in America. But it's a reason. I believe it's a reason. God put us here. I think we can, why are we the privileged 1%? Really, that's a good question. Why are we? But, and I mean privileged 1% in the economics of the world. But God works with what you have, and I think that's the principle we see through the Bible, and we see in these stories, and I think we can see it in our lives. What does He want? Look in my house first. When God wants to do something, no excuses. What's in my house? What does He want? What can I give to Him? Number 7, a disciplined life. Nehemiah 4. I'm going to read verses 12 to 23. And this is where they were running into opposition, and they were running into danger. Verse 12 of chapter 4. It came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon us. Therefore said I in the lowest places behind the wall, and on the higher places, I even set the people up after their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up, and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, be not afraid of them, remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. And it came to pass when our enemies heard that it was known unto us that God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears and the shields and the bows and the habergeons, and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they that bare burdens, with those that laded every one with one of his hands, wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall one far from another. In what place, therefore, ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye hither unto us. Our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise at the same time said I unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us, and labor on the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that every one put them off for washing. That is hard work. If you're a builder and you try to work with one hand and one hand hold a weapon, it would also seem like it would be very slow and hard. But it was, they were committed. It says, every one of us, with one of his hands brought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. And God brought their counsel to naught. You know, there will be things that come against us in life, and we can think of it in family life. Here, someone from the outside was trying to divide this people. And in thinking about our churches or families, there's opposition. I think we all know that. There's opposition. There's people that would divide. There are people that would destroy. But even that goes back to Satan. I mean, he's the one that wants to do that. But how do we face that? We don't panic. We don't disband. We don't give up. But what do? We do what we do because it's right. And sometimes it's not a huge change in plan or a huge change in battle strategy. But sometimes it's just hard work. And in verse 20, it says, our God shall fight for us. When the battle is the Lord's, I think we can say with confidence, the Lord will fight for us. And that is the joy of being on the Lord's side in a battle. Because it can look pretty daunting, it can look pretty discouraging. But when we're fighting the Lord's battle, it says, our God shall fight for us. And then, yeah, it takes discipline. Yeah, it takes these things. Verse 23, not a lot of self-care going on there, maybe, which that word is interesting all the way around, but not that it's, anyway, just what it's worth. Verse 23, it says, none of us put off our clothes, saving that everyone put them off for washing. They're sometimes just hard work. And the Lord saw that, and the Lord blessed that. The last point is a success. In verse 6, somehow through this, they built this wall. Verse 6, so built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together under the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. That's a miracle, actually, that they could build that wall. And I would say any success that we have in life is a miracle when it comes to training our children, when it comes to the Christian walk. Who of us can do that without a miracle? Who of us can, never mind training my children, how about me just learning to walk with God without God working in my life and His power? Our God shall fight for us. Verse 6, so builded we the wall, and all the wall was joined together under the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. Again, the quote, we have success not because we do anything extraordinary, but because we do the ordinary things well. The people that were fighting this battle had their work ahead of them, and we do, but it's not to where we are. The battle, or let me start over. The battle is something that can be won. The battle is something that we can see God in, and God can move in us. The law of the process. What is that? I believe integrity in life is the law of the process. And I'd like to close with a poem, The Man in the Mirror. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't a man's father, his mother, or wife whose judgment upon him must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in his life is the man staring back from the glass. Some people may think you a straight shooting chum and call you a person of place, but the guy in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the face. He's the fellow who matters, never mind all the rest, because he's with you right to the end. And you passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of yours and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you have cheated the man in the glass. Thank you for your attention. You know, this thing of living that life is we're all walking in that, and I appreciate your prayers as we as I speak this week, but for all of us, you know, this week can be something that draws us closer to God, something that sharpens our focus on God. Lord bless you. Let's just pray. Lord, we come to you this morning. Lord, just pray that you would use the things that were said for your honor, and Lord, we commit that into your care. And Lord, just bless each one here. Lord, you see what part of life we're in, what stage of life we're in, and you know what's big to us and what is what we've been through and what we're still facing ahead. And we don't actually know that. Lord, we commit our lives into your hands and ask your direction for us. Thank you for each of the ones who are leading out in this week. Pray that you bless them. And pray that you would just have your hand in the details of this, Lord. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.